Okay, there we go. All right. Everybody see that now? Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
perfect.
Thank you so much for having me come here. Be here. I am always here to give you information and share some information about my very first attempt at literary translation. So next, in this presentation, next screen. Okay. In this presentation, I will be talking about the book, about the author. Then I'll quickly go through a pictorial synopsis of each short story. I'll talk about myself, the translator, and the process I went through to translate from French to English. And then, what is the Rotary connection with this book? And that will be followed by resources and time allotting questions. Next. So the title of the book is Boston, My Blissful Winter, Memories of the 1980s. It's 12 short stories about a young French banker who's been assigned as an intern in a Boston bank and is experiencing Boston for the first time. He visits many different venues and he meets people from many different backgrounds. Now, recently, I was telling an acquaintance about the book and she interrupted me and said, Paulette, I lived in Boston for many years and I never found winter in Boston blissful. I laughed because I could relate to what she was saying. So if you share that opinion, I'd like you to bring your attention to part of an excerpt from a Kirkus review, which is at the bottom of the screen. It reads, Bibliothèque achieves a magic that only visitors from another culture are usually capable of. He takes the familiar and through his unjaded perspective, makes it seem exotic and remarkable. A highly pleasant collection of episodes set in a vanished Boston. And this is a picture of the author, Alain Bibliothèque, in 1989. Next. And this is a picture of the author currently. So his name is Alain Bibliothèque. He had a career in French diplomacy at many different levels, including ambassador to France, and in many different locations and countries around the world. He was Consul General of France in Boston from 1985 to 1990. Now, the usual term of office for a Consul General is 3 years. But he loved Boston so much, he was able to convince his superiors to extend his term to 5 years. And then he wrote this book after he left Boston while he was assigned to Rangoon in 1994. It's written as a fiction, but the fiction is based on his real experiences in Boston during those 5 years. So his second book, Cinédei, Gros Bon en Première Année, is about his father. His father was a French officer who was taken as a prisoner of war during World War II. And it's a memoir about the experiences of not only his father in the gulags near the Baltic Sea, but also about his family. And before the war, during the war, and after the war, when his father was released. When his father was taken as an officer, he was only an infant. So the first time he really met his father was when he was 6 years old. So you can also see on this page how many awards and honors he had. And I'm not going to go and name them all, but currently he is, you can take a look at them. He lives in Paris and he's retired. Next. Next, Jim. All right, chapter one. Chapter one is late one Sunday afternoon in winter. The pictures that you're going to see on each of these slides refer to something in each chapter. I may not talk about every picture that's there, but it's there because it has some reference to the chapter. And I'm trying to keep these short. So in this chapter, we find the French intern's initial reaction to Boston while sitting at a cafe on a snowy afternoon at the corners of Chestnut and Charles Street on Beacon Hill. From there, he observes different people passing by, and we read about his reflections about their different personalities. The reader is also introduced to Beacon Hill, Commonwealth Ave, Back Bay, and the author's fascination with the flashing lights on the John Hancock Tower that forecast the weather. Thank you, Jim. Next. In chapter 2, the story of a t-shirt and a mother's love, it's a Saturday morning, and the banker is preparing a speech that he must give at Faneuil Hall to announce the winner of an ice sculpture contest in the shape of the Statue of Liberty. It's 1986, the centennial celebration of the Statue of Liberty, which was a gift to the United States from France. His secretary, a Christian Scientist, who has been asked to come in on Saturday to type his speech, brings her young son, her young 5-year-old son with her. During the course of that chapter, she reveals her opinions about the politics in Boston at the time. Remember, Dukakis was running for president. Bonnie Frank had just, quote, come out of the closet, unquote. And do you know the historical significance of the grasshopper on the top of Faneuil Hall? And the picture on the top in the left is an actual picture of 2 Commonwealth Ave, where he lived and where the consulate was also located. Next. In chapter 3, The Feast of Kings, the intern is invited to a dinner to celebrate the Feast of the Magi, a typical French tradition where a galette, or a cake, is served. There's a bean in the cake, and whoever has this slice of cake with the pea or the bean in it is the king or the queen for the day. So the hosts at this dinner are a French-American couple who met in Paris during the liberation of France. We learn about the challenges of war brides who became expatriates to marry American soldiers after World War II, and the difficulties of sustaining 2 different cultures as part of their life. Reading this chapter, you'll be reminded of the typical home furnishings of the time. And all you women out there, do you remember that craze where women were advised what color clothing they should wear based on their hair coloring and on their skin tone? That's in here too. So as in many of the stories, there's a surprise ending. But please, if you purchase the book, don't skip to the ending of each chapter to find the surprise. Next. Harvard Square. Miles Davis's record album, Round Midnight, playing on the radio, is the starting and ending point for this chapter. The reader takes a car trip in the pouring rain from Bay Village to the newspaper kiosk in Harvard Square to purchase the early morning edition of the Boston Sunday Globe. Now, if you have ever driven to Harvard Square from the South Shore, on the Mass Turnpike extension, and taking the exit and onto Starrow Drive into Cambridge, and turning left onto Starrow Drive to the Anderson Bridge, you will recognize the stress of driving this trip and in the rain, which is described every time I read it. I think, oh my gosh, I've done that. And historically, did you know that the kiosk at Harvard Square was removed recently and it's no longer there? Next. Chapter 5, Lowell Kerouac. So we learn of Jack Kerouac's childhood in Lowell, his relationship to his mother, some of the people he knew, and in particular his friend, Father Morissette. The occasion is a talk organized by Allen Ginsberg and Gregory Corso in a tribute to Kerouac. We visit the homes, churches, and play areas of Kerouac's childhood and the cemetery where he's buried. On this particular trip, accompanied by a friend from Boston who only knows of Lowell's poverty and misery, we also learn about the rich heritage and struggles of the French-Canadian inhabitants of this city and their community leaders. And we learn about the mills and the Merrimack River. Next. Next. In chapter 6, the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, in this story, we meet a young couple. Both are musicians. Shortly after a concert in the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, we learn of their separation, initiated by the young woman's opportunity to advance her career in Philadelphia. The museum, beautifully described during the holiday season, and the reasons behind the separation serve as a springboard to reveal and discuss Boston's conservatism in regard to accepting contemporary art and music in the 1980s. Both the intern and the young musician reflect on the strength and power of temporary acquaintances and the impact they can have upon a person's life. Next. Chapter 7, Uncle Charles and the Singing Beach. Uncle Charles is 80 years old. He's lived a full and healthy life. After a stay at the Mass General and a bad diagnosis, he is now enmeshed in reflections about the end of his life. As his very last living wish, Uncle Charles asks to be driven to the ocean at Manchester by the Sea, which is also known as a singing beach. Although reluctant at first, through a chance encounter with a stranger on his way to Boston College, who speaks of the ocean as a force leading to God, the banker recognizes that his role in Uncle Charles' destiny and recognizes his own role in Uncle Charles' destiny and in his final days. Next. Chapter 8, Lunch at the Somerset. Now, for those of you who are old enough, I don't know, I'm pretty old, but I'm probably older than most of you. Do you remember the private male clubs in Boston that excluded the presence of women? So this period is examined through a luncheon invitation to the Somerset Club at a time when the Supreme Court had just ruled that discrimination against women in any form is forbidden. In Chapter 9, a Boston lady, venturing to the Ritz for Sunday brunch, the intern joins a couple he had briefly met at a recent function. The exuberant and vivid dialogue of the older woman and her younger male companion explores some of the conservative and traditional customs in Boston in the 80s, such as issues of gender and age discrimination in the workplace, tea dances, Sunday brunch at the Ritz. So the reason I included these two pictures of the dances is because in the chapter there is mentioned, not great, it's just mentioned, not a great discussion about the lambada and the paso doble, two dances that I recognized and that reminded me of my own dancing days in the 80s. Next, the Blue Diner. As the intern and two friends venture into Cambridge to listen to jazz, many of the 1980s popular jazz clubs and artists are examined. The different personality of each character is revealed through their music preferences, the type of music they liked, and we discover how their lives support each other through friendship. Now, since the music is not to their liking, they leave the concert and travel through the descriptive Charles River scenery of Cambridge and Charlestown to the Blue Diner, a landmark near South Station. Comparing the end of winter to their relationships, they are reminded that soon they will be separated. Next. Remembering Sarah Vaughan. The banker learns of Sarah Vaughan's death on the radio in a taxi ride to Cambridge. During the ride, the author describes the glacial days of a northeaster in March. The news of Sarah Vaughan's death projects the author into memories of Sarah Vaughan's voice, the tonality of her voice, the music, and his favorite songs, which he sadly compares to his upcoming departure from Boston. Next. And in this last short story, Portrait of a Child, the young intern sees a painting of a young boy holding a pocket watch in an antique shop called Marika on Charles Street, which is still there, by the way. He becomes obsessed with this painting and introspective about his own childhood and his stay in Boston, which to him has been too short, and about the lessons he has learned about life. Because of the price, he hesitates and is reluctant to buy the painting. When he finally decides to pay the asking price, the painting has already been sold. I'm not going to tell you what happens next, but there's a parallel with the painting, his life, and his departure from Boston. What is the meaning of the portrait in the intern's life? How does it fit into the lessons he has learned and what the beautiful harsh winter in Boston has taught him? Next. Now, about me, the translator. What I'm going to do, instead of going through all these details, I'm going to read from the end of the book. It's a paragraph about the translator, and it pretty much summarizes a lot of the many things I've done in my career, in my life. Paulette Boudrot, also Latenda Johnson, was raised in Fall River, Massachusetts. She earned a BS in education from Bridgewater State University, an MA in French language and literature from Middlebury College in Vermont, and a diploma in early 20th century French literature from the Sorbonne, which is part of the University of Paris, where she studied as a Fulbright scholar. Paulette taught French and ESL in elementary schools, colleges, and universities throughout Massachusetts and Rhode Island, and that was for about 12 years. During the 1980s, she transitioned from education to administration of French cultural services at the French consulate in Boston. In 1955, she founded PLJ Administrative and Business Solutions, a company outsourcing administration and project management for small to medium-sized companies. In 2010, she was awarded the status of Chevalier, which is a knight in the Society of Academic Palms by the French government. An active member of Rotary International, Paulette is retired, and she lives in Falmouth on Cape Cod in Massachusetts. Boston, My Blissful Winter, is her debut novel translation. So that describes those first three bullet points. And the next, how I met the author? Well, of course, I met the author when he was the Consul General at the consulate, and I was working in the Cultural Services Department, which is a branch of the consulate. But why did I decide to translate? Well, shortly after the French book was published, which was in 2007, the author asked me if I would translate the book or if I could find someone to translate it. Well, at the time, I had my business and I was very busy, and there was no way I could start on this project. So after I retired, when I was in Paris or when Alain was in Boston, we would meet for a drink or lunch or dinner. And one day, Dick and I were in Paris, and it might have been in 2014. And I had been retired for a while and seemed to have a little time on my hands. So I asked him if he had found anyone to translate the book. When he said no, I said, I'd like to try, just to keep up my French language skills. So he said, well, do the first chapter and send it to me. So I did. And he replied, continue, continue. And that's how I started translating. So I'm not going to continue talking about the process because it would take too much time. And we like to limit our talks, our presenters, to 20 minutes. And it could be a whole other topic of presentation. So I'm just going to continue with the next slide because it's about Rotary. Next slide. So what does Rotary have to do with all of this? Well, as you know, there have been many changes in Rotary in the past few years. And you know that a few years ago, much to the horror of many of us old timers, we started hearing that Rotary means business. And where promoting your business had been taboo in the past, now we were encouraged to talk about it. So as a matter of fact, I'm working on the program for the upcoming district conference, which will be held in May. And they're having a Saturday afternoon session on Rotary means business. And the format is like a speed dating, so that you will have a chance to meet with other people and have 5 minutes to rotate from one person to the next and promote your business. So to get back to the translating, I started the translation in 2015. And I had gone through the very first of many drafts. And I met the author in Boston for lunch one day. He had just been in Montreal, where he had made a presentation to a Rotary club there. But at that point, I had just become past District Governor Steve Serta's executive assistant. So I told Alain that I had to put the translation project aside for about 2 or 2.5 years. He was okay with that because he had just been to a Rotary meeting. But also, I had already started looking for a publisher. And after many, many rejections, I received calls from two book publishers. And it's not unusual to get many rejections. One of them was very persistent, and she kept calling me. Finally, I Googled her, and I Googled her company, which is PRA Publishing, and discovered not only was she a Rotarian, but she was a past president of her club in Georgia. So we planned to meet. We planned to meet at a Rotary International Convention in Atlanta. And those of you who were there remember perhaps that as it happened, I was sick. I got sick while I was there, and she could only spend a short time, so we never met. So I told her I couldn't do anything for a few years and just dropped it for a while. Fast forward, now it's 2018, and I'm ready to get back to looking for a publisher. And Lucinda, that's her name, called me again. So at that point, I decided this was meant to be. So we discussed it, we negotiated a contract, and today we have a finished product. So Rotary did connect me to the world, and Rotary opened opportunities both for both of us, for me and for PRA Publishing. Next. So where can you get Boston, My Blissful Winter? The book costs $15, and you can get them from the usual channels of Amazon and Barnes and Nobles. But I like to support small business, small independent bookstores. So there's a site called bookshop.org, and you can purchase it there. And they support the small business owners, small independent bookstores. You can also request it from your favorite bookstore, your own favorite bookstore, and they will order it if they don't have it, or through the public library. It's in the libraries now. But if you want a signed copy, well, Past District Governor Steve Serta has graciously offered to be my distributor, and he has some signed copies with him at the Mad Hatter tonight. So, and if you are not there, he has offered to deliver them to you. And thank you, Steve. Or if you want a personalized signed copy, just send me an email, and I'll be in Quincy and Weymouth on Friday, and then I can arrange to get them to you then or after that, after the Labor Day weekend. Then if the next section, next at the bottom is my website. Yes, I have a website. In it, you'll find reviews for the book. You'll find detailed biographies of both the author and myself. There are also 4 recorded excerpts from 4 different chapters, a list of events where I'll be speaking, and contact information. Next.
Whoops.
Okay. That's okay. So we're up to, I actually have finished. If there's time for questions, I'll take some questions. Any questions?
So, Paulette.
Yes.
This is a book that was published in French for a while before you translated it to English?
Yes, it was published in 2007 in French.
Oh, and so was it sold or marketed just in French-speaking countries or in the U.S.?
It was sold in the U.S. also. You could get it on Amazon. The French title was Boston, un hiver si court. So if you translate that literally, it means Boston, a winter too short. But I didn't feel that it really encompassed what the book was about. So we changed the title to be a better reflection of what the book was about, and also about by the time I started translating it, it was almost a history, so like a historical fiction. And it's also memories. So we added that to the title.
Paulette, how long did it take you to translate the book?
Well, from start to beginning, well, I took the two and a half years off, but so I would say, including that, it was 5 years. So that I started. Problem was, when I started, I went through the whole process with the author. We worked on every chapter. I would do it, would send it to him. He'd say, yes, that's fine, that's fine. And then I found out that Middlebury Bread Loaf, which is famous for their writers' conference, had their first translators' conference in 2015. So I applied and was accepted to a workshop. And in the workshop, I had a sample of my translation and discovered, well, I had translated the whole book as a literal translation when it should have been a literary translation. So I had to start all over again and change it to a literary translation. And that's a whole other topic that I'm not going to go into. So, but it took, and then from the publication, I think we signed a contract in November of 2018 for the publication. But then it took time, with COVID-19, and there was an issue with one chapter, and then it was supposed to come out in January, and then it was COVID. So now it's available.
Fascinating.
Paulette, no, I wanted, my hat's off to you. I took French to the highest level I could through high school and even college, but it was always my very worst subject. So I give you credits, and I understand the concerns you have between literary and
literal. Well, I did have the advantage that my parents are, my ancestors are French Canadian, and not my parents, but my grandparents insisted that we speak French every time we met or we were at his house. As a matter of fact, if we recited a poem or sang a song in French, we got a quarter. If we did it in English, we only got a dime.
So that was two quick. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I had two quick questions. One, how many copies did the publisher produce, and then has it been translated into any other languages?
No, this is the first translation into English, and it's print on demand. So it's printed through, I don't know if you know the publishing company, it's distributed through Ingram Spark, and that's print on demand. So the bookstores will order it, and Amazon and Barnes and Noble have it. So there's no shortage. The official launch is September 5th, which is Saturday, I think, because I was going to launch it at the Falmouth Craft Fair, but they canceled that. So
congratulations.
Thank you.
Paulette.
Yes. Hi, Joe.
I had a question. Do you have the book in French? I have a granddaughter who's doing French. I thought it'd be a good gift for her.
Well, it's very hard to get the book in French, but I keep going on to Amazon, and I finally found one copy in French that was like $3.75, and by the time I got put the shipping in, it was like $15 or $20. But there was another copy, one other copy in French that was $18 to $25. So if you go, you might be able to get that one. So
okay, I'll call you.
Okay, good. If there are no other questions, I want to thank everybody. This is my the first time I do this presentation, and I'm planning to do it for other Rotary clubs and also for bookstores and for the libraries. So you're sort of my guinea pig tonight, and I'm looking to you to send me some comments and some constructive criticism, because I'm going to polish it off a little bit and try to. So if you look at it from a critical point of view and send me constructive criticism, I'd be very grateful. If there are no other questions.
Hey, Paulette.
Yeah.
Tony Molino here. I have a contact in the Falmouth Library.
Oh, that's already there. The book is already in the library. Linda Collins is the executive director of the library, and her husband is part of a French group that I attended.
Okay. I know Linda from the university, because prior to going to the library, she used to work with me at the Harvard University.
Oh yeah, I've already spoken with her, and they've already ordered it.
Okay.
And if you want a book, I'll deliver it personally to you, because you're in Falmouth. You won't have to get it through my distributor.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Paulette, wonderful presentation. Really, it's fascinating and it's amazing. Not only your resume, but this work and how it stayed with you for a period of time. Like you said, it was meant to be.
Yeah.
Really a great presentation. Thank you so much for sharing it with us tonight.
Thank you.
Wonderful job. Thank you.
Thanks.
And do we have a guest, Madeline Kaufman, joining us?
Well, that's my sister.
Oh, welcome, Madeline.
I invited my family to come, so I don't know if anyone else showed up. Madeline Kaufman is my sister, and she's in Florida. Thank you, Madeline, for showing up.
Lucinda also, is that your family too?
Who?
Lucinda?
Oh, Lucinda is my publisher. Lucinda is the owner and publisher of PRA Publishing that I was talking about.
Okay.
So she's my
Welcome,
publisher.
Lucinda.
Yep.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
Can I talk now?
Oh, this your sister?
Yes,
This
yes.
is
Yeah, we're go,
I'm not
go,
your sister.
sister.
I unmuted myself, so that means I can talk, right? Hi,
yeah,
Paula.
this is my sister. Hi, Madeline. Thank you for coming.
I know I never talked to you, but I can talk to you now. I never even get phone calls from you. You're so busy, but that was wonderful. That was wonderful. And if I was still in my book club at the library, which is closed because I live in Fort Lauderdale area, and we would definitely have you come and talk, and I would suggest, I probably could suggest they get the book, right? You
Yes,
said
of course,
that-
of course.
Okay.
And you can suggest it to your local bookstores also, and they'll order it. And when this is clear, I'll come down and give a presentation to your book club.
Oh, yeah, when this is clear, okay. We don't even have meetings anymore because it's
Yeah.
not, you can't.
Right.
You gotta just check your books out and wait outside and all that stuff.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Okay, that was great, Paula. And I picture him because I remember meeting him. Oh, this is probably going to be interesting to your colleagues or whatever. He said to me, Paulette was teaching him. I remember staying at your house and you were helping him with his English. He was having trouble with English. And he said to me, your sister is a tough teacher, boy. Do you remember that?
I don't remember him saying that, but yes, I remember
He said, I'm a
helping him
good
with his English.
teacher and she's very tough on me. She's a good teacher. I said, oh yeah, okay. I know, I'm her sister. Okay, bye, Paula.
Thank you.
And Lucinda is there. You're not on. Hi, Lucinda.
Hi, Paulette. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yes, yes.
Oh, yes. I'm in between things, so I'm on my phone. But great job. Really great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to the members of your club for hosting you.
Okay.
Hopefully I'll get to meet them sometime soon.
That would be great.
Yes.
Thanks.
I don't know. Do they have publishing questions?
We
I don't know.
Any publishing questions? I went through the publishing process. I don't know when you came on, but I didn't go into it in great detail.
Can you get it on like a digital version or Kindle or anything, or is it just hard copy right now?
Ebook. The ebook version will be available for pre-order in about a month after rollout. But yes, it
Nice.
is available for an ebook.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Paulette. Thank you, Lucinda, for joining us.
You're welcome. You all come on down to Georgia. You're welcome to come to the Martinez Evans Rotary Club anytime.
Thank you.
Are you guys meeting in person or on Zoom?
We're doing both actually, Zoom and live.
Oh.
Great. How's that working?
But okay, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So next week is Labor Day. We do not have a meeting on Monday, but we do have a board meeting on Tuesday, September 8th. The board will be meeting via Zoom. Paulette, again, thank you so much. Is there any more business to come before the club this evening? Hearing none. Enjoy your week and enjoy your Labor Day weekend.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Jim.